This video is not intended as a substitute for the medical advice of physicians. The viewer should regularly consult a physician in matters relating to his or her health, and particularly with respect to any symptoms that may require diagnosis or medical attention. The information provided in this video is designed to provide helpful information on the subjects discussed. This video is not meant to be used, nor should it be used, to diagnose or treat any medical condition. For diagnosis or treatment of any medical problem, consult your own physician. The speakers and participants are not responsible for any specific health or allergy needs that may require medical supervision and are not liable for any damages or negative consequences from any treatment, action, application, or preparation to any person reading or following the information in this video. Use at own risk. If you are in a life-threatening or emergency medical situation, seek medical assistance immediately. No guarantee that everyone will have the same results. Bee Venom Therapy is not approved.
Please visit us on the web at www.pollenpeddlers.com. You can meet our team of beekeepers that will provide you with all your bee venom therapy needs. We offer bees in a mini pod so that you can easily order as many bees as needed per week, in addition to our Dream Pod system that gently puts your bees to sleep for therapy. The website also gives you resources for bee venom therapy, the protocols, and other people's experiences. Please feel free to contact us via Facebook Messenger or through our newsletter. Thank you.
So hey guys, welcome. We appreciate you being here. Unfortunately today you got a little bit of a downgrade with the host, but you might find yourself an upgrade with the person we're interviewing. A lot of times we talk to you guys about how this is not a magic bullet, bee venom therapy. Well, Trish is hurting today. Trish has been treating for about 6 months now, and she has a neurological retracing. The best way I can explain this to you guys is sometimes her brain doesn't hear everything, and you guys can relate to that. As you know, I don't have Lyme disease, but she does. So that's why I'm here today. Good news is you have Melissa Pariseau here, and she's going to tell her story today. She has 2 kids, and I'm looking very forward to hearing this one. So Melissa, I'm going to turn it over to you and ask some questions as they come up. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm Melissa Pariseau. I guess I'm going to just say thank you to everybody for being here. I think this is great that you all are taking the steps, or you're already started and you're interested in knowing more. I became sick in April of 2015, right after my second son was born. He was a difficult labor. I ended up having a C-section and got a dural tear, which is like a hole in your spinal cord where spinal fluid leaks out, and it's the worst headache I've ever had in my entire life. It lasted about a month. And so I was pretty much immobile at that point. After having my son, I had my family come over and help take care of me and the kids and housework and all that fun stuff. And I just sat on the couch for a long time. After that started to go away, I still had this neck pain here and down my shoulder, and it was really painful to turn my head at all, either way. And it was all in back here, and it never went away, and it burned and it got worse. And then towards the middle of that summer, I started to get fevers around 100 to 101 just randomly, and I'd feel like I had the flu or nobody else was sick around me. And just started to get headaches too, where my whole head would feel like it was just being crushed. And then after that, I went through physical therapy, and my doctor tested me with the ELSA test.
Enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay, ELISA test. The test used most often to detect Lyme disease. ELISA detects antibodies to B, Burgd or Fairy. But because it can sometimes provide false positive results, it's not used as the sole basis for diagnosis.
Which came up negative because it had either been infected for too long or it was a different strain. I have no idea. So then we went through physical therapy, and it was very painful because the pain I was dealing with was actually nerve pain. It wasn't muscle pain as the doctors thought. And I felt like I knew that all along, but was just hoping that, they could fix me. As the winter progressed, I started to get very immobile. I felt sick all the time. I was having trouble eating foods. I lost a bit of weight, and it was still very confusing for me as to what was going on. And I kind of had Lyme in the back of my head because my mom had Lyme disease. And so I had seen her go through it and had talked to other people who had said, you know, maybe you should check out Lyme because your symptoms are very similar. I just kept going through my doctors, and they, you know, told me that most of it was just in my head, basically, and that I was recovering from a rough pregnancy and birth, and that's all it was. And I was tired because I was a mother, and that being a mother, you apparently feel like you hit a floor and can't get up and don't want to move. So by the end of the winter, my legs were very sore a lot of the time. I still had a lot of the nerve and neck pain, and I ended up having a tooth removed and took antibiotics during that time. And so right after the end of that course of antibiotics, started to feel a little bit better, and I had some energy and the pain was a little less. And so I decided that I was going to go back to work, and I work in a restaurant. I cook, and so it's very fast paced. There's fluorescent lights flashing all the time. And after a week, I woke up one morning and my whole entire body was just vibrating. It was like I had been zapped by an electric shock, and it was just like everything buzzed and vibrated, and it didn't go away for a year. The fluorescent lights made it a lot worse. And so I knew then that this was more than just a nerve pain or a pinched whatever muscle thing going on, that I needed more. And so I went back to my doctor and I was like, listen, I definitely think I have Lyme disease or some sort of bacterial infection going on, with the fevers still happening, migraines happening. At that point, my elbows really hurt all the time. My wrists were always popping. My legs always felt really heavy. Every time I got a cold, I ended up getting bronchitis, and I got them pretty frequently at that point. And so I took 6 weeks of doxycycline, and that is a horrible antibiotic. I feel like it makes you super sensitive to the sun, and my hands and face burned. And after 2 months of that, I was also seeing a naturopath at that time. And so that was about a year and 3 months after like my son's birth. So we're in September of 2016. And that's when I had discussed Bee Venom Therapy with someone in a separate group. And she had told me about Ellie Lobel and about her story, about how she had been attacked by killer bees and how it saved her life. And I've always been kind of drawn to natural things. So I put that in the back of my head, and I was like, well, this is something that I can look into. But first, I started with herbal protocols. I did a Bunner protocol, and I did PK injections. So they do like fats and acids directly into your bloodstream to help rebuild stuff that has been broken down over time. I started to feel like a little bit better at the very end of the doxycycline, like I could sleep. Because at that point, I guess we were in the middle of October. Once I finished the doxy, I was sleeping like maybe 3 hours a night, and I couldn't remember anything. I was constantly on edge. Every time I'd wake up, I'd feel like I was startled awake. I'm sure a lot of you have dealt with these sort of symptoms. Also, I feel like I was pretty lucky to have caught it as early as I did, because I know people go years, and the damage that is caused sometimes takes a lot longer to reverse. So I bounced back pretty quickly. I started with dry venom injections in the middle of November, middle of November. And that's where they like reconstitute dried venom and put it in a needle, and somebody has to inject it, you know, just like with the bee stings. It's 1 inch from your spine, but it's a little injection. So I couldn't do it myself. My dad actually learned how to do it, so I didn't have to go to the naturopath every single time to get it done, because it's very expensive. And I did that for about 2 months, and decided, after talking with Ellie Lobel and how I was like at that point noticing results, like I was sleeping more than 4 hours a night. The pain in my neck started to go away, and I could actually like turn my head all the way to my shoulder which was a huge thing. And I was thinking better. My thoughts were becoming more concrete, and I was remembering that, you know, I actually had control. I thought I had lost all control because there was just things were not connecting. And so that was 2 months after doing the dry venom injections. And so I did 1 more month of that and then switched to live bees. And that was in January, February of 2017. And so the live bees were different. I could do it myself, and I didn't have to wait for anybody to, you know, come over and inject me with the dry venom. It's a little more painful because there's no numbing agent, which they used in the dry venom. But I noticed my migraine started to go away pretty quickly, and I could actually throw a ball, whereas before I felt like I had tennis elbow. Every time I throw a ball, it felt like my whole arm would get thrown out. And it was just even like the lightest toss. So I couldn't throw a ball with my kids. I couldn't throw a ball for the dogs. I could barely walk up the hill. And by that end of that winter, January 2017, February 2017 was like a turning point. So that was 5 months into Bee Venom Therapy. And by March, I started to do the neck stings, and that's when my migraines went away. I had like constant migraines probably for 10 months. After that, it was every week I'd get a migraine for a day, and then it was every 2 weeks. And then by that summer of 2017, my migraines went away completely. And I definitely attest that to like finally reaching up, getting the neck stings. My neck pain went away probably by that April, by 2017. So 2 years after it started, it finally was gone. The whole body tingling lasted a bit longer. I think probably by the time I was on Bee Venom Therapy for a full year, then it started to slow down. And it didn't just stop. I still would get tingling everywhere, and I could like feel my tongue vibrating, and sometimes my head would shake. But it slowly went away, and one day I just noticed that I wasn't buzzing anymore, and I knew that everything was really coming together. And winter, I got like the worst flu of my life. So this is 2017 to 2018. I dropped like 10 pounds in 2 days, and it took me 2 weeks to recover. And then after that, I felt like I had passed some huge hurdle. And I don't know if like the flu, and I was also fighting other things and herxing at the same time. But I knew that I was almost done. And by that spring of 2018, I decided that I was going to start weaning off. And so that was less than the full 2 years, but I didn't actually stop. So I took breaks. I took a break around May, June for 2 weeks, and then started back up again. And then I took another break, I guess in September for 2 weeks, and then started back up again to see if I would have any sort of reaction, to see if anything had time to multiply or build back up in my body. And I didn't, and I felt really good. So by mid-October of 2018, I stopped stinging completely.
So you said your mother had Lyme disease, correct? So you think you inherited that, or were you actually bit by the tick?
And I grew up in an endemic area. I'm in Massachusetts. I live in the woods. I've always played outside, been outside. I've found ticks attached to me before my whole life. I've never found a bullseye. I never found a bloated tick, but I have always had lots of animals. There's been times fleas in our house. I tested positive for Bartonella, Mycoplasma, and Lyme. And I have no idea when I was infected with any of them. It could have been separately, it could have been at the same time. And because my body was so weak when I got the dural tear, I think they were able to get into my spinal fluid, and that's why I crashed so quickly at that point. So I've always had joint issues, emotional problems as a teen, which maybe like I had something then, and but honestly, I have no idea when I was infected.
Dang it. You said dry venom for a 3-month period.
Yes.
And then let me make sure I understand this. So you were only on the actual protocol for 3 years or 2 years?
2 years from start to finish.
That's pretty neat. When did you notice this is really working for you?
In the first month, I noticed, because after one of my sessions, I think I was at about 4 or 5 sting equivalents at that point with the dry venom. And it was about a half hour after my dad had come and given me the shots. And I just felt like, you know how like sometimes you just feel a little sleepy in the middle of the day? You feel like that I should be taking a nap right now. I never felt like that. I was constantly like on edge and needed complete darkness, complete silence to sleep at all. I actually had like a white noise machine, and I blacked out all the windows to make sure that nothing could shine in, because everything woke me up. So that day, about 3 weeks in, I got that feeling of sleepy. And so I said, I'm going to jump on this. And I go and I curled up on the couch and I fell asleep for an hour. And in the middle of the day, with the sun shining in the windows and people making noises around me, and I actually fell asleep. And that's when I knew that it was doing something.
Right. So also you said you were suffering from a lot of migraines. When did the migraines stop again?
I had a constant headache all the way until I started the live bees.
Okay.
And on the live bees for a month at 10 stings before I did the neck stings. And after my first neck stings, I got a wicked migraine that was, it was like worse. And there was a lot of pressure here and in my ears. I don't know if it was from lymph congestion or what was going on, but there was more pain than usual, and whatever that means.
Okay.
I was in pain all the time,
So within the month, you could tell it was definitely helping your head with your migraines of live bee venom.
10 stings, and then I did the neck stings, and then I had like a week where I did not have a headache at all for 7 days. And then I got a headache, but it only lasted a couple days. And then I'd have a few days with no head pain. And so that was 2 months after I started the live bees.
Okay.
When I really started to notice.
And I heard you mention the dreaded brain fog. When it started to clear, where were you at then? How long within the treatment process did you notice the brain fog and the mental clarity started returning?
So it was like 6 months in, spring, early summer of 2017, started to have I was able to remember a grocery list, which was amazing. Like I'd walk around the house before and I'd think up like, oh, here's 3 things I need to write on my list. I'd walk over to my list, go to write it down, and everything would be gone. And I felt like my brain was completely gone. So after 6 months of treatment from the very beginning, I noticed that I could write my list and that I could remember those things. And it just slowly started to come back at that point. And I decided that I could get back into college. And so that fall, which was a little less than a year, I guess it was 11 months, because I enrolled in August. And I told my teachers that, look, I've been dealing with Lyme disease. I'm not sure how well I'm going to do. And I just want to give you a heads up on this. And they were all very helpful and understanding. And I actually ended up having to leave my biology class one night because the fluorescent light started to get to me. And I was about 10 months in at that point. The classes, and I was able to retain the information, and I was really feeling like on top of things. And it was just amazing to just feel that, to know, because before I had just thought that it wasn't going to come back, and this was it, and this was as good as it gets. This is my mind now, and this is me now.
And what made you switch from the dry venom to the live bees?
Well, definitely the convenience was a huge thing. Ellie really pushed me to switch over when I'd tell her about the treatment and what I was going through. And she said, I understand why you want to start with dry venom, but I really feel like that you should switch. And also the woman that had introduced me to Ellie's story said the same thing. And a few people had explained to me how the dry venom isn't as pure because it's been reconstituted, and it loses a lot of the protein, the peptids that are in venom that help for other reasons besides melatonin, and the melatonin is also reduced with the dry venom. And so it was kind of a no-brainer.
Sure.
It was easier, it was better, and I, as I said, I'm like all for the more natural the better for me. So
Yeah, I'm just totally interested. I have a friend right now who's making a transition from dry venom to live venom. So I was curious, what was your first win you felt? That now? That now.
I was getting like 2 to 3 hours of sleep in a day, so that was a godsend. And especially having an infant, I wasn't able to sleep anyway.
Your kids are really young, so they never remembered mom with Lyme disease.
I think my oldest does. He's 8 now, and so he was 3 years old when I first got sick. So he saw me through 4, 5, 6.
Question from Sarah, and she wants to know how your herxing was, because she's at 6 months now, and she's herxing a lot.
It was hard to tell what was happening. I would just have a few days or a week of feeling better than I normally did, and then I'd go back to feeling really crappy. Sure, if that's a herx or how to explain that. Every time that I'd go back to feeling bad, I just assumed that was me herxing.
Ever want to give up, Melissa, on this?
Oh yeah. Giving up part was in the beginning when I was feeling I wanted to give up before I started bees. I wanted to give up on everything. I wanted God to take me. I just was ready to go. I didn't want to put anybody through taking care of me for the rest of my life, or feeling like I was a burden on everyone. And then with the bees, I felt like it gave me a schedule that this is what I do 3 days a week. And I take one day at a time. And so life just keeps going one day at a time. I started to loathe the stinging because I felt so good. I didn't want to hurt. Why would I want to, it's certainly not something that I got addicted to. I just knew that I couldn't give up. I just wanted to be better and be better than I had been. And since I was feeling better every little bit at a time, I had to keep going.
What would your advice for the community be to the people who are at the first 6 months and they're not seeing the results that a 2-3 year person would see?
If you have any sort of positive reaction, like you get a moment of clarity, you get a moment of feeling like you're going somewhere, you're moving forward, hold on to that, write it down, and compare it to how you felt. I kept a bee venom journal because Ellie suggested that was a very good thing to do, so you could look back. You go back 3 weeks, say, how did I feel here? Where was my pain level? Where was my mental capacity? It's not easy. It's not easy. You have to take your whole mental state into mind and know that you're going to be your worst enemy at times. You're going to want to give up. You're going to want to give in to something else and let somebody else take the reins, but you can't. You're the only person that knows you the best. You have to be able to take control of yourself, of your life, and your own health. And if you don't know what your body is feeling, then you won't know how to help yourself. So I guess my advice is to just listen to your body first and really taken to how things make you feel, how things you're doing make you feel. Your health goes so much deeper than physical. There's the whole mental underneath it all, and you really need to address that. You can't rely on doctors or other people to pull you through. It's up to you to pull yourself through.
That is really motivating. I'm sure in the communities you hear about a lot of the horror stories, and they feel like they're just not getting any better. And you taking the chance to touch on, hey, that journal they're encouraging you to keep is so important, so you can trace back and look back and say, you know what, I did notice this 3 weeks ago, even though I'm not feeling great today, and know it is working. Do you have anything you would have done different with the Bee Venom Therapy?
It's funny because, as I said, I was just going day to day. So a lot of the stuff just kind of blends in the back of my head as being, this big chunk of bad time. I guess I would just, forgive myself. That was my biggest thing of learning, is like, it's so hard to not be mad at yourself, because you know how you feel when you're healthy, you know how you feel when you're having a good day, and when you don't, and you don't have control over that, it's so hard not to beat yourself up over it. And the biggest thing that I learned is to have patience in my own abilities, and not compare myself to other people's successes or failures, and just try to really, you got to love yourself, I guess. You just got to really be proud and just push. You're doing the best you can, and you shouldn't expect any more than that, and just be patient.
We have someone here, Stephanie, who was recently diagnosed 6 weeks ago, and right now she's on antibiotics and herbals protocols, and she was feeling good for a couple weeks here. But her main question to you is, should she ditch the herbs and the antibiotics and just jump into bee venom?
In hindsight, yes. And I was there. I did antibiotics and I did herbs, and I was even doing an herbal protocol when I first started the dry venom. So I definitely feel like if I had just gone straight to the venom at point and wiped all that other stuff, it would have made it a lot less complicated. Is going to do what the herbs are going to do with less complication. The bee venom is also going to help modulate your immune system in a way that the herbs can have trouble doing, because we're all individual, we're all going to react to bee venom differently, but with the way the herbs are, because they need each other to balance each other out, if you don't have the right balance for your personal self, it can get really complicated. I had a lot of issues with the Japanese knotweed was really affecting like my estrogen production. The city of the bee venom and the fact that it has far more reaching capabilities than a lot of the herbs do was what sold it for me.
Right. So I guess they were just wondering, because they hear so many people doing antibiotics or doing this herbal protocol, and you just answered the question, because it seems like so many people go down this path, and at the end of their path, they're finally like, hey, you know what? I'm desperate enough to try bee venom.
Exactly. And, because it hurts. Who wants to sting themselves with bees, especially that much? Which is why we work up to it. You go slow and you get used to it. And what I would just tell myself is that the pain only lasts for, 5 minutes is the main pain. And then for maybe an hour after that, there's dull pain happening, but it's nothing compared to the suffering that we deal with Lyme disease and co-infections every day. It's nothing. And that's how I felt, is that the trade-off was worth it.
Great. Now, a lot of people, you talk about the pain, but I know several people who are using ice. Did you use ice during any of your sessions?
I tried with ice. I just didn't have time. I was driving my son to school, and so I do it before I drive him to school, and it was just, I didn't have time to lie down on the floor and use the ice. I've heard a lot of people it works really well for, and I just kind of just bit through the pain because I knew it wasn't going to last long, and I knew it wasn't damaging me. So a lot of times, like if you're dealing with pain, if you know that it's a good pain and that it's not killing you, then you can do a mind over matter, which is what I did.
So true, but I think women are the stronger sex in dealing with the pain. You know, we have man colds, and that's a very serious condition we have. But yeah, I just was going to bring up the ice. I know a lot of people using the ice, and it's really helped deal with the pain. We have another great question from Ben. Ben wanted to know, did you notice through this time, did any of your lab results normalize over a period of time?
I never got tested again because it was so expensive. In the herbal protocol and the injections, and I also did Rife machine, and I also did cranial sacral massage and stuff like that. It was very expensive. I ended up spending, you know, several $1,000s within a 3 months time, and so I didn't have much funds at that point. So I haven't been tested since. I don't know what my lab results are. I only know by like how I feel.
Well, that answers that. Melissa, we don't have any more questions. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Bee Venom Therapy worked for me, and I really hope that it can work for you. The biggest thing I can think is that if you're afraid to start it, just know that the risk is very low. And the main issue that most people have is that it hurts. And so like Jason said, icing makes a huge difference. You want to lay on your ice pack or have it resting on your back for at least 15 minutes with a cloth in between, because you can damage your skin for leaving it on for that long. So you want to do a slow numb. That's why it's 15 minutes. Like I said, I never did that. I did it once or twice for my lower back, but I just didn't have time. And that's my personal thing. But I think it seems scary because as a society, stinging can be scary because, you know, we're told not to let yourself get stung. But once you pass that first hurdle, the fear goes away, and it's really just a matter of tricking yourself into understanding that this is for good. Once you start feeling results, then you really do understand that it's helping.
So more questions are pouring in. So here we go. You only did the protocol for 2 years. So
Yeah.
Ben wants to know, are you worried about it coming back?
I definitely have in the past have had like PTSD from it. And to even being as sick for such a short amount of time that I was compared to many others, you know, I've had that fear for a long time where I said, well, what is this? What am I feeling now? Why am I tired? Or, you know, why am I feeling this way? Is it hormones? What's happening? Am I just getting a cold? I felt that way a while ago, but I haven't recently. It's been a long time since I've stung. So I feel like I've passed that hurdle. I mean, I'm always worried about getting reinfected, and I'm glad to know that the bees are there if I need them.
That is great. Another question, do you do any sort of maintenance now that you've recovered? And I guess she's referring to like maintenance stings or anything to that nature.
When I do have bees, which I'm going to have bees this spring coming in, I'm very excited about. I'm going to have my own hives. And, you know, if I have a shoulder pain or a headache and the bees are there, I know they'll help.
Here, what is your detox protocol? Did you follow Ellie's protocol for detoxing?
So I did lemon water, was very helpful. I definitely did the Epsom salts baths, tried to sweat it out when I could. I know a lot of people can't handle the heat. I did the lymphatic massage through videos that I found on YouTube, and especially for my head, that helped a lot with the headaches. I used yucca.
I know what you're referring to.
Why can't I remember the name?
Alka-Seltzer Gold.
Alka-Seltzer Gold.
Ben just saved us. Alka-Seltzer Gold.
Yeah, I did that a few times when I was having, it was usually the night after stinging. In the evening, I'd start to get, my body would start going through a panic attack. So I'd be having tremors, my legs and everything would be shaking. And I feel like that was because I was processing so many toxins at that point. that's when I took the Alka-Seltzer Gold, and I was able to calm down as it processed. I was able to sleep better. I did do the activated charcoal a few times. I don't know if that helped, but I felt better after I did it. So rebounding, I did occasionally because I don't have a trampoline. So it was just kind of jumping up and down. The CoQ10, the magnesium, and the vitamin C were the main ones that I took. I started taking B12, the spray under the tongue, to help, and that seemed to help a lot with my memory. I took lion's mane tincture, which is supposed to be really good for nerve regeneration.
Here's another question from Sarah. Did any of your symptoms get worse before getting better, or did anything new pop up?
I had retracing of my joints popping and my legs hurting really bad, where I would go to lie down at night and my legs would hurt so bad that they were like, all my muscles were shaking and twitching. I think that was either retracing or some kind of Herx reaction. And sometimes that would last a couple days, so I'd have trouble walking. And that was a newer symptom that I didn't really experience before I started Bee Venom Therapy. But that, it didn't last long, and my husband would just rub my legs, and that would help a lot. And I think doing the lymphatic massage on my legs definitely helped that too.
How did you, since you were using dried venom, get over the ick factor of going to live bees?
I don't know. I'm not disgusted by many things. It's hard to gross me out. I do have 2 boys. The grossest part, I guess, was like seeing their butts separate and also like feeling bad about killing the bees. That was difficult for me. So I made sure to do it as painlessly as possible. I did as Ellie said, where I made sure there was bubbles on top of my water mixture, and so that they would suffocate really quickly, and actually ended up freezing them at one point. And so some of you might think this is kind of weird, but I fried them and dipped them in chocolate and we ate them.
It does sound very weird, but the more research I do, like drone brood in the beehive is a delicacy in other countries. One thing, a lot of people do feel bad about using the bees in this form. And, you know, the only thing I can tell people is, you know, honeybees are a super organism. Just as your body cells die and give rebirth every day, so is that super organism. What you guys are using for the healing process in no shape and form is affecting that hive.
Read that it described as the hive is like a brain, and each female honeybee is like a neuron of that brain because of how they're all connected. So they're not as individualized. I still feel like insects are sentient, but that could just be me.
That's a great way to put it, the way you put it, because they're not, they're all one unit as one. Did you have any digestive issues that were resolved with BVT?
I feel like the overall, like ridding my body of the bacteria first, obviously needed to happen for me to be able to repair and heal. And I did do propolis later on. I would do the tincture in water once a day. I did about like 6 to 10 drops in water, so I didn't do a lot, but that may have contributed. I couldn't eat wheat or sugar or drink any alcohol for probably the first year. And before that, before I started Bee Venom, I couldn't do any of those things. But during the first year, I wasn't able to. Occasionally, I would try because I love gluten and I love sugar. The reaction was that it would just go right through me. And so I knew I was not ready for that. So I did eat a lot of well-cooked vegetables. I did do the nourishing herbal infusions, which are like a dried herb like nettles, and put an ounce in a quart jar of water, boiling water over it, and you let it sit for 4 hours. That way the nutrients are much more bioavailable. So basically anything that was really easy to digest. I ate a lot of oats, yogurt, just tried to avoid bread at all costs. That was probably the biggest issue for me.
Another question from Ben is, did you specifically use bee venom therapy for your healing process? And would you say you're 100% now?
Well, I do take mushroom tinctures. So I'm like really into medicinal mushrooms. And so I take, mainly I took the lion's mane, but also cordyceps as a tincture. And occasionally I'll do reishi and chaga and turkey tail and maitake. So, you know, anything like that that works synergistically with other adaptogens that's not going to like contradict bee venom therapy, I think is perfectly fine to add in. Can't prove that any of it benefited me more if I had or hadn't, but yeah, do everything you can, you know, like as long as it doesn't contradict, there should be no issue in including it in your protocol.
Here's another question. Did you ever deal with mold illness?
Didn't have systemic mold, but I am allergic to mold. So with Lyme, I was very sensitive to mold, far more than I am now. And I couldn't take an antihistamine while stinging, so that was interesting.
Sure.
The house that we used to live in definitely had black mold in it, but when we moved, I didn't have the same allergy issues that I was having. I don't think I had it to the point where that was affecting my digestive system, and it wasn't enough that it made the bee venom not help as well, which a lot of people can have if they have mold illness.
Okay, so once again, Melissa, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. This is going to help so many people. And guys, if you like what we're doing and you want to continue hearing these stories, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's Pollen Peddlers. And, you know, that helps us get better on the ranking system, and more people will see these videos and success stories, and it helps us out, and we will continue to pump these videos out for you guys. Melissa, once again, we really appreciate you coming on, taking time out of your day to share your story.
Yeah, thank you all. And I really hope that you all feel much better soon. And, you know, just know that I've been there, and I know what you're feeling, and I'm sorry. And I'm rooting for all of you for sure.
Thanks again for all you do and coming on.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye, guys.